Hello and welcome to another episode of the Classic Chloe Show, where we talk about music and its effects on every aspect of our daily lives. I'm your host, Chloe Castillo, and I have another fantastic guest for you today, author of Last Chance to Save Our Republic and host of the Hannah Faulkner Show, and my very good friend, Hannah. Welcome to the show. Great to have you on here.
Thank you so much, Chloe, for having me back on. It's always great to be with you, to talk with you, and love seeing what you're doing. I feel like there are not very many conservative women in the conservative movement that align just as much as we do, especially on issues like classiness and elegance and restoring our culture back to what it was intended to be by God. And really, not even just what God wants for our culture, but just some standard for morality in our culture. I'm so glad that we agree on almost to a T.
Oh, absolutely. And it's so much fun to have you on or to go on your show when we do this because we do really align, I would say, more than any other female conservatives I met in the whole movement. So it's awesome to have you on every single time. So, Hannah, let's dive in here before we talk about music, because that's where I'm going to go with all this, like always. Before we dive into that, though, tell us, my audience, about your book. I want to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book Last Chance to Save Our Republic, I actually have it right here. I published it this January 1st, 2025, and I started writing it September of 2023. I had no ambition to ever write a book, no thought of writing a book or even starting a podcast, but shortly after getting involved in the political movement and hosting rallies and speaking on the Reawaken tours, my dad kept encouraging me to write a book and to tell a little bit about what I've done and about the rallies and the people that I've met. And I told my dad, I multiple times, I'm like, Dad, I am not writing a book. Like I'm only, at the time I was 16. I had just turned 16, and I was telling him, like, I'm not qualified to write a book. I'm only 16, and I really don't know if I could write a 200-page book. But one day I decided, you know what? I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start researching and just writing. And I started with the 5th chapter, The Poison of Gender Ideology, because that was the issue that I had been affected by the most, and really had been able to see with my own eyes what was happening with gender ideology and the impact it was having on our generation. And so I started writing, started talking about the rally that I held and Chloe Cole's story, and how she was chemically castrated at 13 and put on Lupron, which is a chemical that they put male sex offenders on. In many states, they actually stopped doing it because it was so harsh. But of course, it's normal and it's just fine for our generation. So I started writing about that, and then I started researching and I started diving into John Money, Alfred Kinsey, who has written some of the most egregious, unfathomable things that you could possibly think a human could even think of. And he wrote in his books talking about how babies within 1-2 days of birth are sexually have sexual desires, and how he literally molested newborns. He wrote about this in his book, and he was kind of the guy that really started pushing this idea that sex and gender are different, and started confusing these terms. And we started looking throughout history. A lot of it came from Eastern Europe. And nobody really is talking about that. Nobody talks about John Money. Nobody is talking about how the first genital mutilation surgery didn't happen in 2015 in this country. It didn't happen in 2000. It didn't even happen in 1990, but it happened in the 1960s at the Johns Hopkins Hospital through a man named Avon Wilson, who was really the first man to go through a genital surgery to try to change his sex, which obviously is impossible. You can be a mutilated man or woman, but you'll never be the opposite sex. And so I started researching all this and writing it out in my book. And I quickly realized that even on the subject of gender ideology, these are things that nobody's talking about. And so then I started looking into the history of our country, just something as simple as the founding of the American nation, which is my first chapter, talking about why we left England in the first place. And I think the irony of the whole situation, as I was writing this book and really doing a ton of research, I mean, the end of the book has 30 pages of citations. So I wanted to make sure that nobody could try to fact check me in the book. So there's plenty of citations, really to allow the reader, whether they agree with me or not, to go forward and to do more research. So to kind of summarize the book, it's really just a book, a compilation of what I believe to be the greatest issues facing America, from the infringement on our First Amendment, the infringement upon our Second Amendment, Gender ideology, how the education system has turned into an indoctrination camp, abortion, the death industry, Margaret Sanger, and what I believe to be the greatest issue facing America, which is the breakdown of the family unit between one man and one woman. So I know that's a long, long story, but that's just a little bit about my book and how I got to writing it.
Well, I think you mentioned in the beginning not being qualified. I think you're one of the most qualified people I know. Probably way more qualified than half the leftists who have studied for years upon years in universities. I think that just some research and a heart for God, I think, is all it takes to really be qualified. And you're definitely one of those people. So that I would definitely recommend anybody listening here go get Hannah's book right now and read it because it's absolutely fantastic. And she's definitely a very qualified voice for this whole movement. So thank you, Hannah, for that little or explanation there. Um, it's definitely worth my audience's time here for you to explain all that. I think it's fantastic. So let's dive into. You mentioned at the end there the breakdown of the nuclear family and how important it is, to have a strong family unit in America. Well, actually, anywhere. And you also mentioned a lot of things there I want to dive into about, Margaret Sanger and the whole abortion movement and all this kind of stuff. So let's talk about music. That's where I'm going to go. Um, I think that one thing that a lot of conservatives are missing these days is noticing the fact that our culture is having a huge impact on all these ideological issues that we talk about every single day when it comes to our political landscape, like abortion, like LGBTQ. And I think that you are one of the most, again, qualified people I know to talk about this because you have talked a lot before about what it takes to undermine a civilization and what these Marxist, leftist, socialist, whatever specific ideology it may be, what they go through in their, I guess, like handbook to actually undermine a civilization and destroy society from within. So give my audience a little bit of your take on how they're using music just from, what you've observed just as an everyday American, with this knowledge of how they operate basically. What are they doing with the music these days? What do you think's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you know more than anyone else on this topic. I mean, how they have really kind of normalized degeneracy, normalized this, empowerment movement of women, which is not empowering, telling women to sleep around with whoever they want. And same with men, none of this is empowering, but pushing this message of quote unquote empowerment and liberation and fun, all throughout the music culture. And you look at there's the trend. You look at the music that was listened to even in the 1940s, 1950s to now in 2025. I mean, if the people in 1950s were listening to one of the Snoop Dogg songs that is coming out in 2025, or even the Megan Thee Stallion, whatever her name is, Cardi B, or even something as simple as like Taylor Swift, if the people in the 1950s had got to hear a little glimpse of the music that the young people would be listening to in 2025, they would be appalled. I think they might roll over in their grave if they could hear the music that we are allowing the next generation to listen to. But not just that, the music that we as conservative Christians are uplifting and posting on our platforms. And I'm not some person, perfect person on this. Like, we all struggle because this music has been so normalized, this hypersexualization of both men and women and children, because it's been so normalized, we don't even notice it. We're so quick to put a song on a, fun little reel, and then you go and you look at the lyrics, and your mind is just blown by the degeneracy, the levels of degeneracy and this music that we didn't even know because it's just been so normalized in our culture. Everybody's posting it on their reels, everybody's posting it on their YouTube. So it has to be fine. It has to be normal when in fact, it's called predictive programming, which I think we talked about on a show recently that we were on together. They have really used predictive programming through the media, through entertainment, through the music culture. And over time, they have completely demoralized an entire generation, I mean, multiple generations of people to think this stuff is normal. It's not normal to sleep with multiple women. I mean, if you listen to the song, especially in rap culture, I mean, rap culture is probably worse than it all, worse than any other genre. But the music, I mean, Post Malone, it was Post Malone or Eminem, I think it was Eminem actually, wrote a song about having multiple women, I mean, this is actually multiple rap songs have this in it, having multiple women in the bed with you. I mean, it's just Disgusting, absolutely disgusting, the amount of things that are in that's in this music that we're just posting on our reels, posting on our YouTube shorts because it's cool, you know, it sounds good, rather than really looking at the meaning. And that's how they demoralized us. And so when we talk about this, people are afraid to even condemn these acts because guess what, they're listening to this music every day, so they don't even know what's right versus wrong. And I was listening to this guy, the guy's long gone, he's been passed away for a long time, but he was a former KGB informant and a journalist under the Soviet Union. And all the way in the 80s and 90s, he was warning Americans about the ways that they were going to completely demoralize us as a civilization and break down and really get us to where we are so confused. We don't know how to defend our families. We don't know how to protect our children because there's so much information out there, so much propaganda that we just don't know good versus evil. And that's exactly where we are. I mean, we have people that have warned us for decades upon decades that this was going to happen if we normalize this hypersexualization of children, of family, and really degeneracy.
This is exactly why I love having Hannah on this show. She's just so amazing. I mean, you articulate that so well, and everything you said there is spot on. It's so true. You know what's going on in our civilization is it becomes less and less simple to notice and to point out, and then when you do point it out, everyone's like, "What are you talking about?" You know, and how could you? It's just free speech. And so, I mean, in the normal, I would say one of the biggest issues we have today is the normalization of these agendas. And when we see the results of the normalization, we call that out. Like the transgender ideology, for example, we see the actual kids being mutilated and we're like, oh my God, that's awful. And it is. But like, where's the root? Where is that coming from? Where are we being conditioned to accept this as normal? And if you don't, you're a bigot, you're horrible, you know? So I think that what you just said is so, so well said and so articulate. So let me ask you, kind of talking about the Constitution, because I've been asked several times, um, well, Chloe, there's freedom of speech, and I'm a free speech absolutist, for example, and I just think that you can do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. It's America. That's our God given right. Okay, so to an extent, I would personally agree with that. I think that it is America. You can do to some extent what you want, but at the same time, you wouldn't just, we have laws. You wouldn't just go murder someone because you're an American and you're free. I mean, but at the same time, people say, oh, well, it's art, though. You're not actually harming anybody. You're not actually hurting anyone directly. I would argue that they are. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I always tell people, especially the foreign journalists that come over to America, they always ask me this question, whether it's the BBC or some German outlet. They always ask me this question because they're so curious. Like, you're so free, but how can you guys limit these things? But with much freedom comes great responsibility. And so when you give your child and you give a teenager a lot of freedom, that also they have a lot of responsibility with that freedom. And same goes with a nation. When we have been blessed with freedoms and liberties like what we have been in the United States of America, because we are a nation founded upon biblical principles, we also have to steward those freedoms and liberties well. And we have to steward them responsibly. And if we don't, then we're going to become a tyrannical dictatorship like what happened in England, which is why we left England in the first place. So yeah, with great freedom comes a lot of responsibility. And like you mentioned, just because we have freedom doesn't mean with the idea, with the notion that people are asking, we should just allow child mutilation. We should just allow people to be attracted to children because they have freedom to do so. We should allow, whoever to do whatever they want to so and so because guess what? They have freedom to do so. So no, that's not. It's one of the most illogical arguments that people like to use in reference to us being against child mutilation. But also, when we have a lot of freedom as a society, we also have to, like you said, we have to have laws in place. We have to have a level of morality in our country. And people say, well, I don't want your morals being pushed onto me. Well, if you look at the 10 Commandments, don't cheat on your spouse, don't commit murder, don't steal, all of these things. What's bad, what's wrong about those morals? Nothing. Actually, if you don't have a level of morality in your society, you're going to have full-blown tyranny. You're going to have murder in the streets. Everything is just going to be absolute chaos, and it's not going to be fun at all, and you're going to want to leave there, which is why a lot of these people are coming to our country, because they do recognize that country is free. But why is it free? Because we have people that are stewarding the freedoms and liberties well, which is what our founding fathers intended us to do. Unfortunately, we have a lot of politicians that don't recognize that today, especially on the Democratic Party side. But yeah, it's a funny question. People love to ask that. But when it comes down to like transgenders and things like that, in no sane and no moral society should I be walking down the road and be confused on someone's biological sex. In no sane and no right society should we even be having the conversation of whether or not people should be cutting off their healthy body parts. I mean, this is total lunacy, the things that we are even talking about in our society. And so when these things are affecting society, when you murder someone, that's affecting society. When you go out into society and nobody can tell whether or not you are a man or a woman, that's affecting society. That absolutely is affecting society. I had this Adam Mockler guy on my show a while back, and he said,
Yeah.
why can't you just let them be free? Like, how is it affecting society if they want to dress up like a woman? I'm like, because I don't know whether I'm confused. I shouldn't walk around confused on someone's sex. We shouldn't be. We should not have our children in the next generation saying, mom, dad, like, is that a boy or a girl? Who is that? That should not be the case. And that's when you know that you have no morals. You have no moral standard in your society. And that's what's happened in the United States of America. So with great freedom comes great responsibility. And the argument that the leftist media likes to ask, it's total lunacy. Like, there's no rationale to that argument.
And it's like the John Adams quote that I know I repeat again and again 'cause I think it's so relevant when it comes to music and culture. And I know you just said it at a school board meeting, was it the other day, where you were on fire again, um, talking about, John Adams said that our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious society, and it's wholly, or people rather, and is wholly inadequate for the government of any other. And that's just so true when it comes to this. If we're expecting our civilization and our society as Americans to, follow the Constitution, and for our Constitution not to be undermined by this leftist ideology that seeps in, we have to maintain a moral and religious society, at least for the most part. And if that's not something that we're actively trying to achieve as a nation, then our whole Constitution is basically out the window. It's like, this is not going to apply the way you want it to if you don't have that basis there. So let's take a quick ad break here, and a little bit more from Hannah back in about 2 minutes.
Attention American business owners, big or small, your company deserves to be seen, and Patriot TV is here to help. We're proud to support American-owned businesses by offering a free listing of your company on Patriot TV Store. That's right, no cost, just visibility to millions of loyal viewers who want to support American businesses like yours. Whether you run a small business or a nationwide company, this is your chance to reach a dedicated audience on Patriot TV Store on major smart TVs like Samsung, LG, Sony, TCL, Roku, also on Apple, Android, Amazon, Fire Stick, YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Truth Social, X, and of course, the Patriot TV Store app and website. It's our way of giving back to the community and helping American businesses thrive. Let's work together to build a stronger America. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity. Get your free business listing today. Contact us at info@patriot.tv.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle, about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
If I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's showing up more energy, more get up and go. And it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
When things go sideways, will you be ready? Meet the new Patriot Power Generator 1200, a solar generator that's lightweight with more capacity and more life cycles, and recharges twice as fast, all at a fraction of the price. In a blackout, power lights, TVs, medical equipment, even your fridge. No gas, fumes, or noise. It's safe to use inside your home. This is about peace of mind. To learn more about this amazing generator and get your free solar panel, go to Patriot TV Store and look for the solar generator banner.
Looking to give your wardrobe an upgrade?
Well, look no further. Here at God Country and Kin, we've got you covered from head to toe, from shoulder to shoulder, and everything in between. Introducing our brand new Patriotic Collection, designed to display your patriotic spirit with a stylish look that's sure to turn heads. And the best part is, you don't have to break the bank to be your best you. Why wait? Visit us online or in-store today and elevate your style with God Country and Kin. God Country and Kin, where patriotism meets style. Shop now. Visit the Patriot TV store and look for the God Country Kin banner to find the perfect outfit, shirt, accessory, or maybe a great hat. You can totally see yourself rocking this hat. I know you can. And check out all the great stuff we've got to show your patriotism at patriot.tv.store. Click that link above that says store and join me there at the Patriot TV store.
What do a neurosurgeon, a country artist, and a television and radio host have in common? They all saw the writing on the wall. Big banks sharing your financial information with big government. Join them as owners in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank that protects your privacy, security, and liberty. Invest today at own.oldglorybank.com.
Think you need a new roof? Think again. Roofs aren't made like they used to be. They have significantly less asphalt in them than they did 20 years ago. That's causing roofs to wear out way before they should. Roof Max can extend the life of your roof for at least 5 and up to 15 years, guaranteed. 9 out of 10 roofs qualify. Restore your roof at a fraction of the cost for a new roof. Mention Patriot TV and get their $859 roof tune-up for free. Call 1-800-ROOF-MAX. Welcome back to the show, Hannah. Great to have you on here. So let's keep talking. You've just, said so many things so far that I think is incredibly important for conservatives and all Americans to hear, but especially the conservative movement, because we just get so caught up in so many different directions as far as politics goes, and we hardly stop and think about culture. Our great president has been talking about the golden age of art and culture a few times during his first 100 and couple days. I think it's been amazing to see him work and see our country be, I guess, really renovated here in a way. We're trying to get rid of the deep state. We're trying to do so many things. And part of that has to be really taking back our culture. And so I appreciate you having the willingness to come on here and talk about that, because I know you're so well versed in so many things, and culture being one of them. It's great to talk to you about this. So let's just kind of continue this here. What do you think about some certain artists? So I know we've talked about Taylor Swift a lot in the past. That was the first artist I think I talked to you about in particular, saying, what is this? Why do all the young girls love her? And why do all the, moms and families say, come on, let's go to her concerts and, go have a great time, when she's screaming F the patriarchy at her events? Or concerts rather. It's like, what is this? Why has this become normal? What is going on? So let's take it a step further now. I want to talk a little bit about the normalization of porn. We only have about 5 minutes left, so I'll shut up in just a second to give your last thoughts. But I think that Sabrina Carpenter is a prime example of the demoralization of our society. And I think that, watching her content, people will say a lot, oh, well, Chloe, Sabrina Carpenter isn't really for kids. She's for adults. She's for young adults, or, like college age or whatever, who, are more exploring sexuality and whatever, blah, blah, blah. And if they're adults, they want to get into porn, let them have at it. Okay, so that's great if that was true. I still don't agree with it, but that's a whole different argument. My problem is that a vast majority of her audience is young girls, little girls, like 12 years old. To me, that's like a little girl. Why? What is happening? Who are these parents who are saying, come on, let's go watch Sabrina Carpenter show us different sex positions during her song Juno and ask if you ever tried this one? What is going on? Why has this become normal? I think we already kind of touched on this a lot already, but just expand on that for my audience if you would. What do parents need to be thinking about when they take these kids to these kind of concerts?
I want to say this as well. There's a congressional record. If you go back into like the 1960s, around 1963, there's a woman named Patricia Nordman who was warning Congress about the 45 current goals of the communist agenda in the United States of America to, in the end, demoralize us. One was to break down the family unit, embrace homosexuality, which this is crazy, internationalize the Panama Canal. So when I saw that, and then I saw President Trump say that we're going to take back the Panama Canal, I was super excited, especially had just read, what the communist agenda was, which was to make, even something as simple as the Panama Canal internationalized. So things like that. But one of the goals in the current communist agenda was to normalize pornographic material, and anyone who tries to censor pornographic books, obscene material, or to take down commercials that have pornographic type of content in it, label them as anti-First Amendments, and label them as anti-free speechers, things like that, which we just talked about. And so it's been a very strategic agenda. And anytime someone says, well, you're just trying to ban books, or you don't support the First Amendment, I say, well, you're just a communist. I mean, you're just supporting the laid out for us, right in front of us, communist goals in America. And they say, well, that's absolutely not true. It's right in front of us. That's what Karl Marx wanted, was to demoralize, and not just Karl Marx, but all of these Marxists, communists, Leninists, all of the isms. This is what they want, to completely get to a society where we are confused on our identity. We're confused on how to protect our family, how to even protect our civilization, and to where we are so easily controlled, which is what's happening in our country right now. But you talk about Sabrina Carpenter. I mean, the music, nobody should be watching it. Okay, I don't care if you're a child, if you're a teenager, or if you're a grown adult and you are married with children, nobody should be watching it. It distorts your mind. It perverts God's intention for sexuality. You don't have to be a Christian to understand this. You just follow the science. You understand the scientific studies that have been done on people who watch hypersexualized things and music videos and pornography all the time. Their minds are distorted. They're more likely to cheat on their spouse. They're more likely to have a very unhappy marriage. And so this is what the data is showing us. So it's not healthy for anyone, whether you're 5 years old, 15, or 30 years old. It's not healthy. It's not normal. And that's what they want us to believe, that this is free speech, or it's free expression, and we're just trying to censor it. But at the end of the day, again, with much freedom comes great responsibility. And if we want to have a strong civilization, things like pornography are not going to be allowed. I mean, you look at the fall of the Roman Empire, a lot of that came down to weak, emasculate men that were hypersexualized in many of the aspects of that culture. So this is just a repeat of history that we're seeing. And if we don't stand up and push back against it, we're going to collapse. The United States of America will no longer exist if we don't stand up and fight.
Absolutely, and I think we're seeing that a lot today, and I think we just narrowly escaped diving headfirst into a collapsed America back in November, and I think we just barely grasped it by a thread, and we're holding on. I think that this is the opportunity now more than ever to actually take advantage of the opportunity we now have with our great president back in office to really make a change here, especially when it comes to culture. So Hannah, thank you so much for coming on. It's always so awesome to have you. Where can my audience find you? Where can they find your book?
Absolutely. My website is cultureof1776.com. My Instagram, I don't know what's going on with it. It's been suspended twice in 1 week, so probably won't be able to find me there. But my X page is Hannah F1776. And then my book, Culture of 1776, your audience can get it on any online bookstore, but probably the easiest bet is Amazon.
Awesome, Hannah. Thank you so much for joining me. You guys go follow Hannah. And if her other account pops back up, follow that one too, because it's awesome. And she has so much great content. She's doing so many great things for our nation as a young person, speaking out with absolutely, she's not afraid in any way whatsoever. I think she's on the side of God here. She's doing the Lord's work. And I really truly appreciate her as a friend. So Hannah, great to have you on here.
Thank you so much, Chloe. God bless.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. Please subscribe to the Classic Chloe Show on Rumble, YouTube, and Spotify. Please also follow me at classically_Chloe on Instagram and classically Chloe on all other platforms. See you next week. God bless.